G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. You're here for my round 6 tips of the 2023 AFL season. Anzac round, so plenty of football to be played across multiple days this weekend. With obviously the first game being on Friday, this is why I'm uploading my tips on a Wednesday from now on, because I do upload my tipping videos 2 days before the first game. That all explained, if you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. And let's kick it off with my tips from last week. Okay, over on my tips from round 5, and I managed to get a 7 out of 9, so starting to really get some consistency going with my tips. Now on ESPN, I forgot to click submit tips, so I got a 1 out of 9 on the website, but with my tips from actually last week, I did get a 7. Went with the Crows at home, just felt confident on their brand and how they are playing, and I thought this would be a much closer game, but the Blues were just absolutely poor as Adelaide waltzed their way to an easy victory. Did tip the Dockers, just felt the better team on paper. Got that one sort of lucky. Quite unfortunate that the Suns didn't really pick up that win. They were probably better for most of the game, 3 quarters I'd say. Did tip the Swans, backed in my Bloods, and I thought again a much closer game. Looked like it, but let's be honest, in pretty much at the end of the day, I just felt the Swans were probably 3 or 4 goals better in the end, and they flexed their muscles in that 4th term. Went for the easy tip with the Lions. They got it done convincingly. Honestly, I thought this would be one of the locks of the week, maybe a safe tip for the Demons, but the Dons, I mean, I've said it on the channel a few times, what an impressive win that was, picking up a huge win on the road, and they moved to 4-1 now. Went with the Bulldogs, sort of go with a point of difference tip here. I just felt like they're travelling well with their clearance game, and it was a bit of a 50-50 game. They sort of had it, but lost it in the end as Port Adelaide had another pretty inspirational win. Zach Butters had a terrific game. Todd Marshall was big in that 4th term. Easy tip going with Geelong, even though the Eagles beat them in the second half in the end, which is a little bit concerning for Cats fans, but it was pretty much game over by half time. Went with the Giants, again, one of those better team on paper sort of tips, and honestly, this is a ripper of a game to watch. 𝐓𝐿𝐵𝗶𝗶, the hero, and yeah, thought this would be a really close game. To be honest, it wasn't really like what I was expecting, being a high-scoring bonanza frenzy sort of game. It was just a very, contested, heavy, well-defended from both ends of the ground sort of game, and the Pies, again, probably 2 or 3 goals better, but Saints just kicked the multiple goals in a row to almost come back. But yeah, the Pies got it done. Tipped them, and yeah, out of all that, 7 out of 9. Hopefully we can continue the form. Rightio, so my tips for round 6. I'll make sure to click submit tips this time. I swear I did it, but ESPN can be such a glitchy website sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't load in the tips. Whatever, I'll make sure to click the red button this time. We kick it off with Friday night. So yeah, obviously now we start the blocks of Friday games being first up. The Dockers taking on the Bulldogs at Optus Stadium. Bit of a 50-50 game. This one, I think, off the bat, even though I think the Bulldogs have been playing probably better so far this year, especially in patches throughout games, whilst the Dockers just have looked not like themselves so far this year. Considering this game is at Optus Stadium, you probably do give the advantage to Fremantle here, hence they are the favourites. In the end, it was a fantastic win from the Dockers last week against the Suns. 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐼 and 𝘮𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 were heavy contributors to that win, and you think 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼, has he arrived now? Is he going to be that main man up forward? But maybe now we can start to see him build a bit of consistency off that game, maybe start to kick 2 or 3 goals, and he could go big in this game here. The Bulldogs, again, they've always just been on and off so far this year. They've played some good quarters where they've gotten really their clearance game working, their tools of Norton and 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 really contributing well, kicking goals, but then they just have the same old problem where they concede a surge of amount of goals, maybe 6 goals in a row, and that results in them costing the game. Bit of a hard one to tip here. I think I do like the Bulldogs because they've just been playing better, but the Dockers at home, you'd think they get a big crowd, they off that, win that gives them confidence. Now moving into 2 wins of the season, you'd think they're a decent chance here. 50-50 tip, but I might go with the away team. I might go the Bulldogs. I just like the look of their midfield. I think they're slightly playing a little bit better than the Dockers. Both teams' defences are pretty weak, so it really is hard to split them, but I'll be going with the Bulldogs here. I think they'll get the win in the Wests. In a close game, I reckon. This will be maybe a bit of a low-scoring affair. But yeah, if the Bulldogs mids can really get clicking and their clearance game can get working, and if their defence can hold up and not concede a huge amount of goals, I'll go with the Bulldogs here, and they'll pick it up and win by, we'll go 6 points. Moving on to the Saturday games now. First one, Port Adelaide taking on the West Coast Eagles at Adelaide Oval. To be honest, I think the Eagles, yes, they're probably in that groove now. They're going to start picking up losses left, right and centre, but you can see the improvement from last year. They've played in good patches throughout the season so far. They actually did beat the Cats in the second half. They kicked more points than them, even though the game was almost over. You can start to see a bit of positives. Oscar Allen at the moment is really shining through. He's starting to show some really good form down forward. Tim Kelly's been a workhorse in that midfield, but you just look at it head to head, it's a pretty simple tip in the end. Port Adelaide, very hard team to knock off. The Power, of course, at Adelaide Oval. They've had 2 really close wins in a row, but I think they've played some good footy. And, you know, those 2 wins, they'll bank that. They'll give them confidence. And I do expect a big win here for Port Adelaide. Again, the Eagles might trouble them for a quarter or 2, but in the end, Port flex their muscles, pick up a big win at home. I'll go Port Adelaide by 43 points. Next game here, we've got the Giants taking on the Lions at Manuka Oval. Good to see a game back at Canberra. Of course, we'd love to see the Tom Green fan club arrive, but that certain individual is suspended, so yeah, it's going to be a bit of a shame to see watching the game on the telly. But yeah, head to head, the Lions obviously the better team on paper here. The Giants, again, they've been an odd team so far this year. They've picked up some really good wins, but then they've just played some awful football in between the quarters they have played. They've just been a team that's turned the ball over way too much. They haven't executed very well. Whilst for the Lions, they're starting to really hum now, especially in their forward half. They're executing. Many focal points for attack are getting on the end of multiple goals. 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐻𝐪 and 𝐓𝐿𝐴 have been in some great form. Charlie Cameron's starting to pile on the majors as well. Still think off the ball they can improve a little bit. Hence, I think maybe the Giants could get off to a quick start perhaps. But they usually do sort of progress themselves into their games, the Lions. And I expect them to kick big here. Kick over 100 points against the Giants. And not a bad hit out, but I reckon in the second half, Lions will cruise home and pick up a convincing win in Canberra. We'll go Lions by 37 points. Saturday night here, possibly one of the games around the grand final rematch. Geelong versus the Sydney Swans at 𝐓𝐴 Stadium. So the first game in Geelong, so instantly you think the Cats look the goods here. I know, bit of a poor and unexpected start to the season for the Cats, but those last 2 wins, yes, I do understand, against the worst teams. You felt like the Cats, knowing how good their team is and the list quality they do have, they just need wins. They need big wins as well to gain a bit of confidence and sort of mentally be prepared now heading into some more tougher opponents. And it'll be a big test for them, of course, facing the Swans, where the Swans usually play some good footy, not only against Geelong, but they're very good at 𝐓𝐴. I think the last 10 years, it's been a pretty decent head-to-head sort of encounter. Swans came out really hungry in their huge win against the Tigers last week, even without no McCartans and, of course, no Dane Rampe down back. They had to rely on Jake Lloyd, who put together a terrific game, and Robbie Fox, the versatile defender, put in a bit of a shift. And you look at the matchups there, no McCartans, no Rampe. I think Rampe is back, but Tom and Paddy McCartan won't be back this week. You think Jeremy Cameron and also Tom Hawkins are going to be licking their lips. So you think the Cats sort of have the favourable forward matchups there. Geelong will be disappointed with their second half from last week. They did end up actually losing the second half against the Eagles. So maybe that's an area that the Swans can really look on if they can play a full, good, high-pressure brand that they're quite good of playing for a full 4 quarters. You think they are the genuine chance to win here. Hard one to really split here. Look, anything can really happen. You can see Geelong really cruise home a big win. I don't think they will be playing bad here. They've got the confidence. They now know what to expect of themselves. They know how to beat the Swans, of course. Should be a close game, however, but I might go with the Cats at home. It goes against every bone in my body, having to be suffered from PTSD sitting at the MCG for 2.5 hours as we got battered as a Swans fan against the Cats in the grand final. But yeah, hard one to tip here. I just think the Cats, they've gained confidence. You expect them to play well, especially at home. That's where they play their best football. And yeah, close game. I reckon they'll pip out the Swans here. I could just see Cameron and Hawkins having big games here. And especially, you know, Dangerfield and a few of their midfielders are really lifting here. In a close game of football, we'll go Geelong to take it home by 5 points. For the Sunday games now, we have the Hawks taking on Adelaide at UTAS Stadium. Instantly, head-to-head, you think, yeah, we'll just go Adelaide straight away. But there's something with the Hawks. They're one of those teams, again, for a few quarters, they can hurt the opposition. But their troubles has been playing good enough football for full quarters. It's at UTAS as well. That's usually where they play their best football. They are quite hard to knock off there, or you have to really grind down Hawthorn to pick up a result there, with the game being on Launceston. But the Crows, they're hard to go past at the moment. They're in some terrific form. Their forward half is humming. They are generating really good scores and entries when going inside their forward half. And, you know, the move of Dawson in the midfield, etc. They're just a team with exceptional form, and when a team is on high form, it's hard to go past against them. The Hawks sitting last at the moment. I don't know if they're able to knock them off for a full 4 quarters here, especially with the Crows playing some good footy at this moment. Defence as well, it's been a little bit mediocre so far this year, but it has been strong as of late. So yeah, the Crows should be getting the job done here convincingly. I don't think it'll be a smashing. I think the Hawks will actually play some good footy here. Could be a bit of a closer game than what all of us expect, because we don't know about Crows' defence. Still isn't proven enough, especially, you know, we've got to give it a few weeks. So yeah, the Crows will still win though. We'll go Adelaide by 19 points. Now for a sold out, yes, this will be sold out, primetime game, Carlton versus St Kilda at Marvel Stadium, 3:20 p.m. Good game here. It's going to be very, very even. The Saints probably a bit higher on the form, whilst the Blues, they are looking good, you know, on the ladder wise, but sort of how they are playing in their methods so far hasn't been the most convincing. Last week, they were very poor with their ball movement. I thought they were very bland and very predictable and vanilla, just bombing it down to 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐼. The Crows defenders really went onto homework. A lot of their tall defenders left their man, went onto the 3-on-1 contest, push the spoil out or take the intercept mark. So I feel like that's what the Saints will do in this game. You know, 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐼 and 𝘼𝐵𝐿𝐴𝐿, they're in some very good form. So I think in the air, they can really match it up to the Blues here, which is usually their strength. The Saints as well in the midfield, they've been very good contested-wise. One of the best defensive teams so far this year. They structure very well, and only conceding really 70 points against the Pies is a pretty big positive, as they are a heavy scoring team. Should be a good game this one, but I will be going with the Saints. I'm just liking them a little bit more compared to Carlton at the moment. Also, the Saints have a pretty good record against the Blues these last few games. I mean, last year they pipped them whilst they weren't the favourites of the Saints. So I'll go with the Saints to pick it up here and get the win. But you never know about the Blues. If they play just their, you know, dominant contested brand and 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐼 can really get going, they're a good chance here too. But for me, the Saints, I'm just liking the look of them. St Kilda will pick up the win in a good game of football. We'll go the Saints by 15 points. Now for a Sunday twilight game, Gold Coast taking on North Melbourne at Heritage Bank Stadium. Suns have been really disappointing in the kickoff this year. I feel like they've been in a lot of games where they've had opportunities to win, but they've just let it slip in the second half. They did that against the Saints, they did that against the Dons, they especially did that against the Dockers. I still don't know how they lost that game. And you've got North, who are probably starting to enter into a bit of a groove here, where they're wanting to try and play some riskier footy, and that might not execute. We saw that against you know, the Lions, where they tried to play, you know, some high pressure footy and be bold with the ball movement. Didn't work, and they got pummeled by over 10 goals. I think North head into this game with, you know, some high hopes and really trying to pick up the upset here. Playing a Sun side terribly out of form, their execution, and especially transition forward and defensively has been out of whack, I do feel. But I think heading back home, the Suns are angry. They should be playing better football here. Probably the better team on paper. I think 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐼 is out injured, so I expect them to really be strong in the midfield, whilst North's midfield was very poor last week. They're a good clearance side, the Suns, and I expect them to win this game here. They are, you know, quite convincing favourites. I don't mind the upset from North. I just don't know if they have it in them for a full 4 quarters. We'll go with the Suns at home to pick up the win, and they'll win by 26 points. Now for 2 cracking games here to finish off the round. First one, Monday night, the D's taking on the Tigers at the MCG. Both teams coming off quite disappointing performances, so you can't really look too much in last week's form. I don't think it necessarily was a sort of structure or skill error sort of loss from the Demons. They just didn't want it. I think the effort was quite poor. They're probably a little bit complacent, but they'll just tick that off and move on to next week, being the strong team they are. So I think they will definitely bounce back here. The Tigers are a little bit out of whack at the moment. You know, Riewoldt getting banged up, and their injuries are hurting them, of course. You know, no Jaden Short, no Tom Lynch, no Broad. He's not injured, but he's suspended, but still is out of the side. Even though they came close against the Swans, it just didn't feel like a very convincing performance. It just, as I've been saying, their forward half efficiency has just been all over the shop. The third term against the Swans, it was very strong. That's what they can do. That's their upside. When their efficiency and their scores from turnover is high, they can win games. But yeah, against the Demons, I expect them to bounce back here, be a lot more hungry and harder at the football. I don't know if Lever does come back in, but I expect them to be stronger in the air, and especially at ground level. These sort of Monday night games and these primetime games, they are close games of football. I reckon it will be a close game, but the D's pile on the scores in the 4th term and win by somewhat of a little bit of a convincing margin. We'll go Melbourne by 22 points. Now, earlier I did say the Swans versus the Cats is game around, but sorry, I forgot about this one, the actual Anzac Day game. The Pies taking on the Dons at the MCG, the classic Anzac Day rivalry, and they're saying like this is the closest game since 2000 because both teams are in the top 4. Can you believe it? Second versus third. So yeah, it's a game where you don't want to take the Dons lightly. These are the games as well, like no matter how good or how bad a team is playing, they are always close games. They're always good games of footy, hence the 2 games from last year too. So yeah, right off the bat, expect this game to be close. It's going to be a high contested, probably high brutal game as well, where goals might come at a premium. I think the Dons can really match it up to the Pies here, especially in their forward half. I think ground level, they have been good. They've been very good of pressure when turning the ball over, and they can generate that into scores. I think Langford's been in great form, and Stringer's been starting to really get the ball rolling with his form as well. Meanwhile, for the Pies, they did get the job done. They weren't the most convincing, but to be fair, the Saints are a very strong defensive team. And the Dons as well, they've actually been one of the best teams in the competition on limiting scoring shots per inside 50 that they concede. So yeah, they're doing very well as a back 6 at the moment. But we all know about the Pies transition, no matter what defense it is against, especially in the big ground of the G, where they play their best football. They can really execute here. So it's a 50-50 game, really. It's going to be close no matter how good or how bad a team is going. These games are always close. But with all explained, I might stick with the Pies as being the home team. And the slight favourites here, it's going to be a ripper of a game. Expecting it to be close, heavily contested. Maybe high scoring. We'll go the Pies by under a kick. 3 points. So everyone, they're all my tips for the Anzac round, round 6 of the 2023 AFL season. Thank you very much for tuning into the video. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think of my tips, and feel free to comment down your tips below too. Love to hear everyone's thoughts. Once again, everyone, thank you very much for watching this video today, and until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.